Welcome, everybody, to Midday Magazine for this Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. Have your host, James J. Malouf here, and we're spending the entire hour with our good friends from the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker in with us. Good to see you, Shawn.
Great to see you, as always.
Want to say a big thank you to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. A big shout out to Angelica and the gang over there. We appreciate them being here. Be sure to do yourself a favor. Go to YouTube, type into your search bar, Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, and subscribe to all the great work they are doing. Shawn, we got plenty to talk about today, but you brought in a friend I want to introduce.
Absolutely. Well, you made that request last month, if you recall.
Yes.
When we were talking about Tim Bassett and getting the Jefferson Award. So I gave him a call. I gave you about a week's notice, and he is available, and so brought him here today just to talk about the Jefferson Award and talk about him and his volunteerism. It really doesn't start or end with Reggie, who he's been helping out for quite some time now, but even going back many years ago. He's part of our rescue unit, Wood County Rescue, and I think Tim just you talk about people that volunteer for their community, and Tim's it, and I'm really fortunate to have him as a friend as well.
Tim, thank you very much for being here. Tim Bassett, a recent winner of Jefferson Award. And as we were talking about a bit in our pregame, Tim, I had a bit of an honor to go along with this. It's an honor to receive this award, as I imagine, but also receiving the award from Melissa Langben and being her last one, it turns out.
Yes. It was an honor to meet her, and the interview up there at Reggie went real well.
Tim, I want to first off, I saw that interview. I've seen some bits of your work and throughout on social media and some of that. And just first off, I want to thank you not only for being here, but for the work that you put into our communities, the good that you have done, the good energy that you've put in there, not only with this program, but with other things, as Shawn was saying. But as I was telling Shawn on air, off air, I was fascinated hearing about what you do and what this involves. And I think it's a topic that is a gray area. We don't hear a lot about, we don't get to touch on very often. So right out the gate, I want to ask how you got interested in doing something like this, how it started when it came to helping injured animals.
Well, a friend of mine, John Malsky, he worked up at Beer and Mill just like I did. And everybody up there called him the Birdman, because he always had a book of all the birds that he was taking to Reggie. So I started riding along with him, and we took a eagle up there one day and brought the eagle into the clinic so Marge could see him. And Marge took my right hand. She says, "Give me your hand." I says, "Why?" She says, "Just give me your hand." And I put my hand on the eagle's chest to feel the heartbeat. I was hooked from then on, and I've been doing it for over 6 years now.
Did you grow up loving animals? Did you grow up with a passion for animals?
No, that came later. That came later. As a kid, I was just a normal kid, football, baseball, that kind of thing. But the bird thing came into my adult years.
I kind of felt that a little bit. I'm in a similar boat. I didn't grow up with animals. I grew up in the city. I didn't have dogs or cats growing up or anything. But as an adult, I started working at shelters. And the moment I saw the first dog I ever saw, I've been in love ever since. And put a lot of my energy and volunteerism into those things. I don't think we're alone in that regard. We almost come into this late, but almost making up for that time of loving animals. And it's one thing to want to work at a shelter, to want to do some of these things. The work that you're doing, Tim, and Reggie is doing it's a little more difficult, a little more tense than that. And it's hard for me to say that because I know how hard it is working in shelters and that. But you're going immediately to an injured animal, and immediately it is the clock is ticking.
Yep.
When it comes to, so if you could walk us through kind of an average version of this, if you will, a generic version of this. How do you guys first hear about these injured animals?
Well, Reggie gets a call from somebody out there that spotted either an eagle, maybe a hawk or an owl that's on their property and it won't fly away. So they get on the phone, and not a whole lot of people realize it's Reggie that you call, not like the Sheriff's Department or the DNR, because Reggie is, when they get the phone call from this individual, no matter where it is, they get a hold of one of us transporters. It's totally volunteer, and they get a hold of one of us, and if I'm available, I'll go. now that I'm retired, I go a lot. But it's typically I go out to the location of where the bird is. I get it from whoever has it, whether it's I got to put it in a box or if it's already in a box, transport it up to Reggie, and then the technicians up there, they take it out of the box, they handle it. I don't, because they're the medical part of it. So some of these injuries could be severe and some of them not so bad.
Yeah. When it comes to, I can't imagine the empathy and what goes into every one of those animals. What it must feel like when they're released. What it must feel like when they're healed and they're all better.
Yeah, we had a incident in back in, it was in Stevens Point at the Furniture and Appliance Warehouse. One day I got a call up there for a downed bird. Didn't know what it was. Got there and the guy had it in a box. And when I went to pick it up out of the box, I had gloves on because I got to protect my own self. So I picked it up and I thought, what's all over this bird? Here somehow this red-tailed hawk that looked like a crow because it was so black got into some grease and oil. And it took over, I think I said this in the interview with Melissa, that it took over a year for that bird to get cleaned and for its feathers to be repreened again, well, whatever that word is. And then I was able to go up in sometime, I think it was in December or November, and I was able to release him back into the wild. It was cool.
Yeah. Just hearing you talking about it and the energy in your voice with it and everything.
The
I
feeling
can imagine.
is you can't describe that. I mean, I would have never thought that I would have fell in love with something so easy. And there's not a whole lot of transporters here in central Wisconsin. So I'll go most places where I'll go down to Adams Friendship. I'll go to Necedah. I'll go just about anywhere within, reason. I mean, I've gone as far as Osseo, Nilsville to pick them up. So, but it gets the old heart pumping, just like it does for deer hunters when they kill a deer. Well,
Right.
My heart's it's gratifying to help these birds.
Yeah, and it's random interview. Interview 101. My next question is supposed to be why. Looking you in the eyes and hearing you talk about this, I don't have to ask why. I think we get it.
Well,
I think we get why you do this.
The biggest reason is I love helping people, and this love of helping these birds. I have credit with John Malsky and Mark Oshasky. Both of them were into it well before me, and riding with them, it's just, like I said, I've fallen in love with it, and I love helping people. Well, obviously, and birds.
Yeah. It's something that I think that both Shawn and I can relate to in our own ways with the things that we are passionate about, and many out there can. It's not a matter of why we do this. We don't have a choice. Like you mentioned it right away. The moment you felt that heartbeat of that bird, you were doing this. Like whatever you were not going. You were pulled to this. You were called to this.
Yeah, I guess that you could call it that way. It was just a feeling of feeling this bird's heartbeat, and to get that close to a wild bird.
Yeah.
Beautiful. None of these birds to me are ugly. They might seem to be, but such a beautiful feathers and great horned owls, all of them. They're just awesome to handle. But like I said, I don't get to handle them very often other than picking them up and getting them put in a box. That's about as far as I'll go.
Tim, what does Reggie stand for? We've referenced it a couple of times.
Raptor Education Group Incorporated.
And how, as far as the organization, how big is it? How many individuals are a part of it? Is it a big organization?
There's the sponsors. I'm not sure how many there are of those, but as far as the staff up there, there's probably 5, 6, that full-time staff, and then they get the interns in the spring and summer. And they help Marge a lot.
And Tim, how many birds are in Wisconsin? No, I'm kidding. But just to give an example of like how the numbers that you guys have and the numbers of birds or injured birds, it speaks to how great the work you're doing is and how important it is, and how needed it is.
Yeah, the their count up there is probably close to 1,000 birds every year,
Yeah.
and I'm only a quarter of that.
Yeah.
You know, I've picked up maybe 25, 30 birds myself, but they come from all over.
Is there a story that you've mentioned a little bit of this, but is there a story, is there one that stands out to you that you haven't gotten to mention, or any people that you'd like to mention when it comes to Reggie, or even the birds that you've saved, or any of those?
Yep. Well, like I said, without John, taking me up there and showing me and breaking me in, I don't know if I'd be doing this. But there was another time that we picked up a sandhill crane. We had a call. Well, Mark Oshasky got it. But he calls me up and he says, Tim, can you help me out with something? I says, well, what do you need? He says, well, I got a sandhill crane in Nakusa with a broken wing, and we need to go get it, and I need your help. That sandhill crane, I don't think anybody realizes just how fast they run.
Yeah.
But we got it into a baseball diamond up there and got him trapped in one of the dugouts. And Mark, after we get him in there, I says, well, now what? Because I had never done this before.
Yeah.
So Mark reaches out with his right arm, puts it around that sandhill crane to contain his wings and his beak, and we had to put him in the back seat of his sedan. So that was an adventure. That was one you don't forget.
So much of this I can only imagine there's not really a playbook for. There's, hey, you have an injured sandhill crane, this is how you handle it. So that's an interesting angle on this that I wouldn't have thought of. Huh.
Well, I started taking birds calls from the Wood County Sheriff's Department, from Shawn and his deputies. And I got a late call from dispatch. Well, it wasn't that late. It was 6, 7 o'clock. It was near dark. And here was turned out to be a red-tailed hawk that went through the grill of a pickup truck. So, and the bird actually broke the grill. So I looked at this from a distance. I said, how am I going to get this, the talons that they got, the beak, how am I going to get this out of there? With the help of the driver and the passenger, I was able to pry the grill away far enough to get my gloved hand and get him out.
Nice.
I think he survived it.
That's awesome. That's a great story, Tim. Nothing but great stories. I've really appreciated the time. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Yep.
And another note that you brought up right away that I appreciate too, Tim, is something that Shawn and I have talked about before. This gray area where we see something in our community, and which is a good instinct, I think, overall. Is call the police department, call the sheriff's department. But there are situations like this where that's kind of not the people that you want to call. So it kind of is a nice reminder to our audience that, hey, you see an injured bird, call Reggie. They're going to be able to help you a lot faster and help that bird a lot faster than people that that's not their wheelhouse.
Right. Well, like the call that went to the Wood County Sheriff's Dispatch Center, I'm not going to say that that's the place to call. That's up to Sheriff Becker to, if there's, especially after hours, that's up to him. Mm-hmm. We get the call from, most of the time, on average, we get the call from Reggie, and then we're told where to go. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that I would turn down. I mean, if it's an injured bird.
Yeah.
So I've been to Adams County down there for their dispatch, too, to pick up a bird. It's okay.
Yeah, it's that gray area that we've discussed before, Shawn, about I imagine that every call you get, you want to help, but there's certain things that are not in your guys' wheelhouse, and you have to be very time sensitive with these things. If you're on that call helping out a bird, you're not able to help out a family that is dealing with this or some of those things. We only have so much time and only so many people.
No, it works out really well with Tim and what he's been doing throughout the years. And Tim doesn't mind that his information is shared with dispatch. And if we have what normally happens with situations that we respond to where an animal's injured, especially a bird, the first thing that comes to mind is Tim. Is he available? And we'll call him. And it really boils down to, if Tim doesn't mind getting those phone calls, we're going to call him. And very often when we call him, he's available and he'll come out and assess the situation. And if that bird's got the capability or maybe can survive, he's doing the transport, and he uses his own time. Obviously, he's volunteering, but his gas as well.
Right.
He uses his own vehicle and goes to Anago. It really depends on how often that is on when there's a situation that we need him. But he's been always available. Or I know that there's a time that we held a bird. I forget which kind of bird it was, but we held it at the sheriff's department for a few hours until Tim was available. And we'll continue to do that. If there's an option or that bird might survive and we can get the bird there to Reggie, we'll do that. And Tim's been the contact for that for quite some time.
One of the other things, and I focus a lot on this when it comes to our emergency response teams and the cooperation and communication that is involved in that, and how vital that is to our communities. Again, every second with these situations is time sensitive, and there's only so many hands that we have in our department. So for every time that Tim is taking a call or Reggie is taking a call, that is something that you guys is off your plate, so you can focus on other things. So as important as this Jefferson Award is, and noteworthy for the animals that you've saved, and that's certainly not anything we're taking lightly. I think that there is another extension of that, of taking things off of the plates of others and focusing on that. It's a unique part of this, and another part of it that we appreciate about not only Reggie but you, Tim, and the work that you guys are doing. It's really important. It speaks to that, and hopefully gives us some appreciation too of other organizations like Reggie or other people out there. So many other individuals helping you guys do your job, and the communication factor, which we've talked about so often, Shawn, is how important that is, not just with departments in other counties, but community members and community organizations.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's a lot out there. There's a lot of people out there that, that come to mind that, volunteer their time for something that they have passion for. Like, talking with Tim here, the passion that he has for Reggie and what he does. You look at a good friend of mine, Mike Weiberg, the passion he has for a volunteer organization, which we'll talk about in a little bit, our Wood County Rescue Unit. You got people that are part of Focus, the Family Center, Mary's Place. I could go on and on. Just the options out there that people that can give back to their community, and it's you like to do all of them, but where you see a lot of the success is like what Tim's done. He's focused on one thing that really he's interested in, and it gives back to the community. And there's a lot of people out there that do that, and we're lucky to have them, especially around the holiday season. It comes to mind Toys for Tots. We're right now getting to that point where we're collecting toys, and what's always really it tugs at your heart because what who's benefiting from this. Kids in need. Yeah. And then you go around the community and you help pick up the toys, and then it goes to a place where it gets sorted for the kids that their age group, boy or girl, and it's just pretty humbling to see the community effort when you see a program like that and all the volunteers that are part of that to make it happen. The food pantry, just seeing the people that are part of that make it happen, and then you get out to the community, and when we have those mobile food pantries, and we'll have a few of our squads going because we know some areas that people can't get to come and get a package of food that'll last a week or two. We'll take it to them, and being part of that, and just the reaction you get when you drop off something and you see how somebody is appreciating it when they're struggling. And I think that's part of being a public servant. With what we do as law enforcement officers, there are also ways to give back to the community and help people that are struggling. So those are two things that just jump out at me, especially during the holiday season. I really enjoy seeing our team take part of those kind of situations.
We're fortunate in a community like this where we have so many different people that step up, and we have so many different organizations that step up and want to do some good. And when it comes to an organization like Reggie, Tim, I imagine that there are people out there listening that are intrigued by this and might want to be a part of Reggie or volunteer or something like that. Should we just send them to the website? Is there a phone number they can call?
Yeah, there's a website. Like I said, it's Raptor Education Group Incorporated. There's a Facebook page that you can look this all up on, and there are phone numbers that you can call.
That website Tim's referring is raptoreducationgroup.org, raptoreducationgroup.org, and cannot encourage you enough to like the Facebook page. It is a great way to keep up on things that they are doing over there, find out ways that maybe you can help impact that work. But just as cool as all of that is the posts. Seeing the updates on these birds and everything is amazing. It's really cool, and I appreciate you guys also sharing so much of that, Tim, for people like myself that may not be there. Yep. We get to live vicariously through you guys. Experience some of this stuff. We all understand in all of our individual jobs and lives that there are grinds. There are days where you just, are a grind. These are the wins that we need to take. There are wins that happen every day. You got to focus on those. Focus on those little wins. Oftentimes they can be the big win in your day. And having you in today, seeing you win that award, Tim, felt good. It felt great to be able to see that, not only for you, but for Reggie, and seeing the attention brought to this group and what you guys do with this. I cannot thank you enough, Shawn. Thank you enough for bringing Tim in today. I really do appreciate the time. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Again, if you're curious and want to find out more and be a part of things, you can go to Raptor Education Group's website, raptoreducationgroup.org. That is raptoreducationgroup.org. And be sure to follow them on social media. It's a great way to keep up to date on the things that they are doing. The phone number for them would be 715-623-4115. That is 623-4015. We will take a quick time out. We'll come back, and we're going to have some more conversation with Wood County Sheriff's Department Shawn Becker right here on Midday Magazine at WFHR, locally grown radio. Welcome, everybody, to Midday Magazine, Part 2 with our conversation with Sheriff Shawn Becker right now. I want to, of course, thank our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being here as well. Shawn, and thank you to Tim for being in, Tim Bassett. I appreciate the conversation from Tim and bringing some attention to Reggie and being able to focus on that. Shawn, before we get too far ahead in some of the things that you had there, I just wanted to, we don't get a lot of light moments. And I had to share this one with you, especially because Terry was just in, and I got the green light from her. But there was a guy recently who went to commit a robbery at a Walmart in Virginia, and just happened to do this during a Shop a Cop with a Cop event. This criminal mastermind decided this was the good time to do this, Shawn. This was
doing some research.
We appreciate the easy wins here. I was saying before, you appreciate the easy ones every once in a while. But what do you even do? How do you? I wouldn't even know where to begin with that, man. Just shaking you got to spend at least a minute shaking your head, right? You just
So the squad cars in the parking lot wasn't a tip that law enforcement.
Yeah, right. I don't know about that one, but I think you have more important things for us to focus on. Talk on. We got a new jail, open house with our jail coming up.
That's thanks for bringing that up. I know we talk about it every month, but with what's coming up this month on the 17th is a ribbon cutting, open house ceremony that we're going to have following our county board meeting. So it'll probably happen around 11:15. We'll have refreshments provided, and the Samuels group that was our project manager is doing that, providing that, and it'll be a celebration of and it's hard to talk about, to be honest, since we've talked about it so much, but to see it come to the point that it has with about being completed, it just gives you the opportunity to reflect on what it took to get there, and a lot of it we talked about throughout the years, and we'll have a short presentation before the ribbon cutting, where some of us will get the opportunity to speak. Laura Valenstein from our county board, who was very instrumental of moving this project forward. I know we talked about it before, but when Lance Plimmel, put together the ad hoc committee that really focus on the jail, and she led it. She's the chair, because at the initial time frame when we were looking at this project, she wanted to ask more questions. She wasn't sold that Wood County needed a new jail, and I really applaud her for that, because she dug in along with some other county board members, but she was a leading force behind it. Asked lots of questions on, hey, why do we need this? Why do we need to spend all this money for a jail? And then, answering the questions she had, along with other committee members, we moved in this direction. Same with Lance Plimmel. He's been part of the county board for quite some time, and it's a lot of money to spend, a lot of taxpayers' money. But again, once you answered a lot of the questions on the need, it just became, hey, we need to do this. And, getting the opportunity to speak at the event is going to be very humbling for me. As I've been getting older and doing public events, you kind of get used to them, but it's still, there's a lot of nervousness there. And I'm going to be very nervous when I get the opportunity to speak, because it's just, there's so much to this, that came together. It was never about me, or a lot about the sheriff's department, but it's more about the community and why we needed this and what it took to get there. And then I can't say so many positive things about our county board. It didn't matter what side of the fence they were on, they worked together. And that's such a positive, such an awesome thing to see, because you look at the elections that we just went through, and the further that you get away from the community you live in, it gets just so polarized. Where here you've got our county board, our public servants here, our elected officials. Like I said, didn't matter where they what side they were on, they worked together, and you don't see that. The further you get away from local politics, and I'm very proud of them for what they did, the work they did on this. It wasn't just coming to a meeting here or there and talking about it. No, the county board members went out to the people they represent and talked to them about it, and educated people on this project. And that just doesn't, I'm just so humbled at how being part of that process and seeing it come together. And I'm just very, very lucky that the position that I have, and really getting to watch the process happen. And with the county going forward, building this is the biggest project that Wood County's ever taken on. Lance had said that, and just to be part of that is extremely humbling. So next week, this is going to be open up to the public on the 17th. The doors will open probably around 10:45, 11 o'clock. We'll have, like I said, a short presentation. The groundbreaking presentation got a little long, and it was cold. So we were reminiscing about that, because that was just over 2 years ago. And like, okay, who's going to talk? Let's scale that back a little bit, and let's just give the people the opportunity to walk through the facilities so they see what this project's all about. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And again, thank you, James, for the opportunity to continue to talk about it. And I'll probably continue to talk about it for months on. But it's just such a big thing for the community to be part of. And I'm very, very proud myself just to have that small part of it to see it through.
One of the things that I always encourage from our listeners, and I'm so thankful for, is their feedback and hearing from them, whether they have compliments or questions, whatever it might be. And one of the things that actually came up last time we were talking with Mayor's Matt when he was in was some of the budget and some of those things. And you're always going to have people that will say, well, we should be spending money on this and we should be spending money on that, et cetera, et cetera. And to one of our listeners, when this came up and about the new jail, the first thing I asked was, have you ever had anybody that has had to stay incarcerated in that jail? Have you ever had anybody in there? And this individual has not. And I asked, well, if you were to be incarcerated in there, wouldn't you want to know that you are safe? Wouldn't you want to know that you are you messed up? You're not there because you did something good. You're there for the wrong reasons, obviously, but you still have rights, and you'd want to know that those are safe. You want to know that that is okay. You'd want to know that a loved one was, if your child was, or something like that. Now, what about your somebody with a badge? you want them safe for sure, don't you? And this person I didn't even finish the question. Like, yes, I want our officers safe. Like, what, now, and then I asked, what kind of price would you put on that? How much would you pay to guarantee that? How much would you pay to make sure that happens more? And they had no answer for me. Yeah. Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, first and foremost, I believe, safety. Yep. And safety for these clients, safety for the officers, safety all around. Yep. I imagine for you, Shawn, the emotion of this, and part of why it is so difficult, is not just because of all the things you just said, which are certainly noteworthy, but you know better than most of any of us of what I was just talking about, the safety issues. Yeah. There's certainly the stories we've heard of. I imagine there's plenty of things that are very close calls that we never even hear about. Yeah. So many different stories for so many decades that have happened at that jail that we can avoid now.
Correct.
Along with the other things that we've talked about as far as saving the city money, tax dollar wise, and some of these other factors. But that safety factor has got to, as somebody that I know carries every one of your team's hearts with you, I imagine that means quite a bit.
It does. It's not about me. It's about the team. Yeah. It's about the team that wears a uniform, whether it's a corrections officer or a deputy sheriff. Their safety is number one. And to see somebody that gets hurt, that's on me. That's the way I look at it. And that was a big part for me as sheriff, looking at it from the outside looking in. Yeah, it's what does the team need? And what do they deserve? And that's a part of this whole project, and of course that's what the passion is for me to tell you, hey, our team deserves this. I mean, especially with the working conditions that they've been going through for a long time. And again, our county board just did awesome with it, not only with, moving forward with a new jail that is much safer for our team to, supervise inmates, but even more so for the inmates that have to spend time there when they make mistakes. So it's a win-win for me, and of course I'm going to say that, but not everybody supported it, and I respect their opinion. It's a lot of money, but the county needs a jail, and I applaud the efforts that went on, not only with our county board, but all the city aldermen that were part of it once they were educated with it. The people out in the community, that's where the county board members, like I had mentioned, doing their job of going out and talking to the people that they represent in their district. That was huge. That was a big part of the project. And I think more and more people, once they were educated with this situation, understood it. And that was a big reason why we're moving forward. But no, you nailed it. For me, the passion is the people that wear the uniform and represent the community. They deserve to have a safe environment to come and work at.
When is the open house again?
It is the 17th of this month, and like I said, right around 11 o'clock. You can come a little earlier, but we'll have the front entrance of the new facility open. We'll have some deputies there for security purposes, get you through, and then we'll do the ribbon cutting up on the third floor where the new county boardroom is, and then from there we'll have tours for anybody to walk through, and food and refreshments for everybody.
Going to be cutting it close, but I plan on being there. Might be wrapping up a conversation here. I'll be writing over there as soon as after. I'm looking forward to it.
Honored to have you there, James.
I know you had some other things that you wanted to touch on as well.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. Lieutenant Wagner, Susanna, and Lola. For Lola's 1-year birthday, Susanna said, hey, why don't we do kind of a birthday celebration at the courthouse for the courthouse employees to meet Lola, and they can get a photo with her, and then just give us a donation, whether it be a food or something, materials, or cash for the Southwood County Humane Society. So that was awesome. That was Susanna's idea, and she came up to, I think, around $350 and a bunch of materials and food that we took over to the Humane Society. So Susanna's been doing just an awesome job with Lola. We're so fortunate to get Lola, and then with what she's been doing with the dog, not only just within the jail, but just out in the community. Been really awesome. This was a great idea that she had, one of many of her ideas that she comes up with to get out in the community. And I think people like Lola a lot more than us. But hey, we're cool with that.
To that point, I was waiting to tell you this. I had my sister and brother in town for the holidays. We haven't gotten together since the pandemic, so it was wonderful. Sure. And my nephews around. I love my brother and sister sister, but I got to hang out with my nephews. That's
There
where
you go.
my focus really was. One of my oldest nephews was they live in Appleton, and they brought a canine. Their local police department brought a canine by, and he tells me, we're talking. I'm like, Mason, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And he's talking about this, and he says, "Oh, I want to work with animals when I get older." I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool and stuff." He's like, "Yeah, I want to be a police officer."
Nice.
It's like,
Love
and if that's one situation, I know that it happens more than that. But even if that's just the one time, that right there is such a great reasoning behind this. Obviously, with the canine unit and the great work that they do on the job, if you will. But it's that PR level of it that we've talked about many times too. That that's not the only kid thinking that, man. That's not and the opening that has created for law enforcement and getting more good people into law enforcement. There's so many layers to what Lola and the K9 unit do in our local departments.
Absolutely. No, we're lucky to have the community support for our K9 unit, and it comes from we have a foundation called the Acacia Foundation, and the Riverview Foundation want to donate a lot of money to us that we very, very appreciate. In fact, the money that they donated will definitely fund our next dog when we need it. And I told them that, and just going back to the community, it's really heartfelt when you see people that are willing to donate their hard-earned dollars to a law enforcement agency, especially supporting the our canine unit. I can guarantee that the Sheriff's Department will have multiple canines for as long as it's in existence, and that's really based on the community support.
Got to get Lola in studio. Got to get to that, man.
Come on, we can't give her that much attention.
No, that would be, and all my focus would be on the dog. I would, you and I would barely talk. I'd just let you turn your microphone on and I'm playing with the dog the whole time.
We could probably make that happen.
And where else did you want to go, Shawn?
A couple other things. The Festival of Trees is going on right now over at the Masonic Lodge here in Wisconsin Rapids. A big shout out to the Shriners. The Sheriff's Department, want to recognize Mitzi, our office manager, Jenna and Jess, who work for her. They put together a tree every year that's on display, competing against other people in the community that put a tree together. And it's really the whole focus of it is to donate money to our local food pantry. So we did it last year. It was fun. So you can go and buy some tickets, and whatever tree gets the most tickets in it is declared the winner. But it's all about supporting the food pantry and stuff. So that's going on right now. So please stop by over at the Masonic Lodge here, close, not too far from here. The other thing too that's very humbling. Two things I want to end with. One, recently I got a phone call from Lon Roberts. His mother was murdered back in the early 80s, Eleanor. And with the recent conviction of John Sarver, who was responsible, there was some justice served there. And he called me about a month ago and said, "Hey, I want to donate some money to the Sheriff's Department." I'm like, "Oh, really nice," in his mother's name. And I'm like, "Okay," and it's $10,000. I'm like, "Oh, okay," and I'm like, "What do you spend that on?" He was very complimentary of not only our department, but Dave Lowdy and Bob Lewandowski, who, worked this case, were the backbone behind the case. And, even after retirement, we talked about it, continued to be involved with the case just out of their heart and, how it meant so much to them. And so as we started talking about it, I called Bob and Dave. I'm like, what do you... I don't know how to take this money and what do you spend it on? We kind of talked it out, and, because you don't want to buy a piece of equipment that doesn't last forever. What do you do? And we came to the idea, and I think it was Dave's idea. We thought maybe donate to our canine unit, to the foundation I brought up, and the Roberts family were good with that. They said, you can spend it on whatever you want, but what I struggled with is what do you spend it on, and where do you get something that's long lasting in Eleanor's name. So we came up with we'll recognize a staff member who goes above and beyond treating a victim or a victim's family, just going out there and helping that person that's going through a hard situation. And the Roberts family was good with that, and with the money that will last for 20 plus years, that we can recognize a staff member for going above and beyond, and that seemed to really fit. So again, very humbling, when you see a situation like this where somebody tragically, loses their life at the hands of another, and then has to go through many, many years of knowing who did it, but it not being prosecuted. And then it does, and somebody's convicted, rightfully so, and is sitting in prison the rest of their life, which they should be. But having to see a family wait and go through this, and then to come back and circle around and donate a lot of money to our department, and for whatever we want to use it for. And the struggle for me, like I said, is what do you use it for? And I think we came up with a really good idea that, that we'll have memorialized at the department. We'll have a trophy case, if you want to call it that, or a display case just on stuff about our department throughout the years. And we'll have something on display there, memorializing Eleanor and also recognizing a staff member that did go above and beyond.
It's very fitting and a good use for it, and also very relatable, I think, of not knowing what to do, but a great decision. I think that'll work out good. I'm looking forward to hearing more about those throughout time.
Evolves. Yep. Yeah.
And where did you want to wrap up?
Last thing, Wood County Rescue. I know Mike Weiber got to be on the radio show with Lance Pummel. He didn't want to. Mike's not. He's a pretty humble person, but we're in the process of building a new truck, and we knew that wasn't going to be cheap, probably around $400,000. And Mike did a really nice job of, looking at what the needs are for the rescue unit. And, the truck we have now, we know it's getting close to that end of life, with all the maintenance that's happening. So a couple things happened with it. The Sheriff's Department, set aside $75,000. Rescue did an awesome job of getting out in the community and fundraising about equal to that. And then Legacy again came forward. They got us a airboat. Now they put a bunch of money towards it as well, but there was still a shortfall of about $60,000. And this is where Lance Plumel comes in the picture. We still have ARPA money left, and he asked, "Hey, how much do you guys need?" And we came up with a number, and I can say that was approved. So this project will be completely, totally funded through fundraising efforts, Legacy, our Sheriff's Department, and the county. We'll hopefully have that truck done, sometime next year. And it just goes to show you got the volunteerism that Tim was part of. He's part of our rescue unit for many years, and you have Mike Weiberg that has been overseeing for quite some time. And just you look at the rescue unit was being looked at being cut like 8 years ago or something, and now what it's evolved to. Not only responding to a certain area in the county, but throughout the entire county. All the fire departments know that if they need rescue, they can call. And if you look at the equipment that we're getting, like the airboat, you never know where you might need that. And the expectation is we will respond anywhere within the county. And just that change to see and rescue throughout the last several years, and the donations coming to it just says a lot about the people that are part of it. And going back to Lance and our county board again, looking at this and again approving that last portion of funding, which we were going to fundraise for it no matter what. We weren't walking away from this project. But this to step up with the ARPA funding that the county still had available, which I'll tell you what, you look at the money that our county board saved throughout the money that was given to us by the federal government on ARPA and how they spent it, it's going to last. You look at other municipalities, I'm not saying Will County, but other counties that, you use the money on services, then that's gone. You have projects now that are going to last in Wood County for many, many, many years to come. And I think that's what the money was intended on to being spent for. So it just tells you again about our county board, how they looked at, how are we going to use this money, and how they did was just, they were awesome with it.
Whether it's citizens or government workers or people in our workforce, our police staff, our emergency staffs or anything, the communication and the cooperation working together is how we thrive, how we make our communities that much stronger, safer, better. This past hour has been a real good example of that, along with a lot of great information. I appreciate it as always, Shawn. Look forward to our conversations every month. Speaking of which, won't see it until next month, so Merry Christmas to you and yours. Same to you, Tim, and you and yours. And thank you, Tim, so much for being here and letting our audience know a little bit more about Reggie and that organization. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Reggie, you can find out more about by going to raptoreducationgroup.org, raptoreducationgroup.org. Be sure to follow their Facebook page as well. And as always, remind you to follow along with our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They got great social media websites. Check those out, and certainly check them out on YouTube. And be listening next month for another conversation with our Wood County Sheriff's Department. A big thank you to you, Shawn. Again, be safe out there. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
And we'll have more Midday Magazine coming up for you right here at 97.5 FM, 1320 AM, WFHR. We are locally grown radio.